Last class, we started our fluorescent snowflake base. We're gonna make a radial design. So the reason that we're really getting into this today is we wanna talk about radial symmetry. And radial symmetry is when it's symmetrical, the top, bottom, sides, diagonal, all the way around. So what happens up here is going to happen here. What happens over here will be happening here. Same thing with the diagonals, okay? This is kind of like a kaleidoscope. I call it a fluorescent snowflake just because we do it this time of year. However, you could very easily call this the kaleidoscope project. So today, we're going to be adding to our snowflake that we made last class. But to review, we're using just regular printer paper. We had to turn this into a square. You take the corner and you fold it down, not to the opposite corner, but to the edge so that this lays flat. You're gonna cut off your strip. Throw that away. So that's fold number one. We now have a 90-degree angle right here, our right angle. So the diagonal line opposite of the right angle, you're going to fold. Fold number two. Find your right angle again. Diagonal line opposite. This is called the hypotenuse. This long diagonal opposite of your 90-degree angle. We're going to fold that again. So that is 3 folds. Crease it real good. Okay. Now, I don't think you have to do this, but if you want to do it, when you open this up, you have a plus and a crisscross. Then you are going to cut out shapes, starting on one edge, going back to the same edge. If I cut all the way across, I'm going to cut a large chunk of my snowflake out. Now in this case, I'm going to start on this side and end over here just because I want to give it a weird, like, lower area, but I did that on purpose. It wasn't something that I just haphazardly did. Okay. Open it up. You have your snowflake. Somebody suggested folding your paper in half lightly to crease it. And then finding either the up and down or this up and down line and lining it up with your half and gluing it down. You want to make sure that this snowflake is centered on your paper. Okay. That brings us to today. So first thing we're going to do is make a colored snowflake. Then I'm going to show you how to make a smaller colored snowflake with a smaller piece of paper and how to get this piece of paper. All right. So actually, I'm going to show you how to get a smaller piece of paper first, because this is literally the same process of folding in half, cutting the snowflake. To get a smaller snowflake, when you want smaller pieces, like say these pieces right here. Let me take this out of the way for a second. It's real easy. If you take your 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, fold it in half. I'm gonna crease that. I'm going to show you how to rip paper without scissors. So if you crease it real hard, then flip it over and crease it real hard. I do it a couple times. Then hold this flat, and I'm gonna pull this out, not up, out to the side. So I'm kind of like using the side of my hand here to hold that crease. And you see how I'm tearing to the side, not up? Okay. If it's not 100% perfect, like that has a little flaw there, No big deal, we'll just use that side as the strip that we cut off. This piece can go back to the demo table because somebody else can use it. So now now I have a rectangle again, I need to make a square. So I'm gonna take this corner to the side here, crease, cut off my extra strip, so 90 degrees, fold the hypotenuse twice, 3 times. Now you have an itty bitty snowflake to cut here. Notice that I am keeping my hands out of the way of my scissors. Safety first, guys. As much as I can. Occasionally you have to kind of put them in front of your scissors, but try to keep them to the side. Now I have an itty bitty snowflake. So how does this turn into something like this or this? That's a great question. So we are going to deconstruct our snowflake. You might have heard of like fancy meals being like a deconstructed hamburger, which basically means they took the parts of a hamburger and took it apart and probably put it in a bowl for you or on a plate. So we built our snowflakes. Now we're gonna take them apart, okay? So what I don't want to see for our snowflakes is a bunch just piled up in the middle. That's not deconstructing, that's just constructing and layering, and it's boring. So what you're going to do to deconstruct is you're either going to cut on the vertical and horizontals or the diagonal lines. Your vertical horizontals will give you pieces that look similar to that. And if I were to cut on my diagonal lines, I would have pieces that look like that. I think I'm gonna cut on my vertical. So I'm literally just cutting it apart here. Cutting it apart here. Okay, now take a look at your pieces. If there's something that you're not crazy about, like I like it, but let's pile them all up together. And this lesson's all on symmetry, right? So I know if I fold it in half and make one cut, it's all gonna be the same. Maybe I wasn't crazy about this little node there. Okay, I unfold it. And now I have 4 of the same pieces with a little shorter, I'm gonna call it like an arm, okay? When you go to glue these down, they need to, first off, you have to have 4, and they all need to match. If you're doing a diagonal glue, you glue it in all the same spots. If you're doing a vertical horizontal glue, you glue it in all the same spots. So for this guy, maybe I take a look and I want the arm to touch right here, these pieces of my snowflake. So I would glue that right there. There. and then I would move on to another color. You want to make sure that you're really paying attention to where you're placing your cut apart pieces, because there's nothing worse than having 3 and then like one guy floating out here, which doesn't look great. All right. So I have some pre-cut pieces already. Let's play around with these, see what we can do real quick. So this guy, I'm gonna put right here. If it is popping off the edge of your paper a little bit, that's okay. You don't want a whole bunch hanging off the edge. A little bit's no big deal. And put that right there. Being that we're using wet glue, if you accidentally put something in the wrong spot, you need to move it around, you definitely have time to do that. Once you've done, I would say 3 colors, take a look and make sure that you don't need white again. Like, I feel like I could use white on my edges, like in here again. But you can layer things on top as well. So maybe now, do something like that. Okay. Or I could slide them inward and overlap it. Like so. I actually kind of like that better. All right. So you will have glue on your hands at the end of class today. No, you're not wiping them, you're not washing it off. Remember, it peels off. If you add water to Elmer's glue, you get slimes, and we're not trying to do that. At the end of class today, these are going on the drying rack. And if you have extra half sheets, those can go back to the demo table. I'm going to call you by table to go up and select 2 colored papers and go back to your seats and begin. Okay, any questions? Awesome.